Good evening. My name is Samantha Dickow. I am here to talk about QMES, employee engagement, specifically a solution to high turnover and low performance of our medical equipment technicians. So those guys are our drivers, extremely important to our day-to-day activities along with our revenue. So these guys are extremely important. We want to keep them happy. So here are some solutions I came up with. I think they would be extremely beneficial to our company in the long run. So here's an executive summary of what we will be covering. I won't go into too much detail because I'll hit these later. We're going to look at high turnover, ways to combat that, the pre-employment process. We're going to screen employees a little bit more. We're going to implement a tuition reimbursement program and look at longer on-the-job training. A way to combat low performance could be implementing quarterly assessments, implementing a new position of team leader, and performance-based merit increases, which I will explain at a later time. So these pre-employment screenings can be extremely important to us. So anytime that you have a resume in front of you, we always want to verify previous employment. So if we have someone saying they were at an employer for 8 years, if we call them up and say, was this person, how long has that person worked with you, and they say 8 months, it's a huge difference. And we want to make sure that our candidates are not jumping jobs every 3 months, because that's costly and that's what we're trying to avoid. So looking at someone who has an experience level at least a year at another job or some kind of longevity in their resume is extremely important. So another thing we can do to have some more pre-employment screenings would be assign assessments at application time. So I was tinkering around on Indeed a little bit, and I saw that they have the option, the free option, actually no cost to the employer, to set up phone screens and other tests, and one that caught my eye was a reliability test. So some questions that these reliability tests will ask is how many days did you call out sick at your previous job? What's important to you when looking at your schedule, what is important to you benefits wise, and kind of seeing if our benefits and our schedules line up with what they want. The phone screens will be a good way to hear the person's demeanor, see how they would work in a team, see if they have the experience to do the job well. So these phone screens will send out as soon as the person applies. It'll go right to their email, and they follow the link, and they can do it right on their phones, on their laptops, on their iPads, anything that they have. So another implementation would be group interviews. So take about 10 potential employees, whittle it down to about 3. So a lot of there's that good competition. I think that would be extremely important in the hiring process. So we can ask in those group interviews scenario-based questions and get their ideas on a day-to-day activity that they could be doing, and see how they work as a team, see how they're working in a real-life scenario. So a tuition reimbursement program here would be extremely beneficial, because we are attracting more applicants. People who want to go to school and want assistance with school can look at a place that has tuition reimbursement and say, I would absolutely love to work there and continue my future. They could also This would also help us retain goal-oriented employees. So this would make sure that we're keeping the best of the best, the people who want to be better, the people who want to go to school and advance in the company. This also shows that we as a company value education and we value our employees, and it can also incite promotions and promoting from within. So that's always extremely important when people come here and they start off as a driver and they go all the way up to account manager. We could see more of that with a tuition reimbursement program. So to look at it cost-wise, if we give employees a $2,000 max benefit, then they would have to complete their probationary period of 3 to 6 months, whatever we would decide, and then they would be eligible for that benefit. If 25% of our employees max out that benefit, we'll be at about $1 million in costs. So most trade schools or most online schools or community colleges are around $2,000 per semester. So this would be strictly tuition, no books or fees, and that's something we would write up in our contracts. Another thing we could write up in our contract is a repayment plan. If you don't stay with us for 6 months after receiving your $2,000 tuition credit, then we would need that repaid back to us. And we can look at verbiage and everything when writing up that document. So these are better than sign-on bonuses because someone could get part of a sign-on bonus and walk out the door and we couldn't get it back. So that's definitely important. These are also tax deductible. So this tuition reimbursement program can also help us on taxes. So another way we can combat high turnover would be longer on-the-job training. I am suggesting that we go from 5 days of training to 10 days. This leaves our employees feeling more confident, more ready to go out in the field. It gives them a better sense of security. We're also looking at longer supervision. So if a supervisor sees something that's a red flag, they can call it out right there and nip it in the bud. So that would be another plus of the longer on the job training. It's obviously more thorough. If we're doubling the time, we can get more information into their heads and make sure it's retained. Another thing we could implement during this training is a cumulative test to ensure they are ready for the field and they are ready to combat any questions they might get in the field. So I think a lot of our turnover comes with people being intimidated by the job itself, going into someone's home, going into a situation where they're not in control and they're in someone else's area. So I think if we take the time to train our employees, it could be better on our end. So a way to increase performance is quarterly assessments. These are going to be called touch points, so it doesn't feel like you're being assessed. Obviously, the meeting would start out discussing your strengths. So we're going to talk about future opportunities. We're going to set some goals for the future to make sure that our employee feels like they've been working towards something. So we can also coach the weaknesses. We want to use the word coach because we're not yelling at an employee. We don't want to make them feel attacked. We want to stay away from the bullying mentality of saying you didn't do this right and being accusatory. So we'll address any complaints that they've had or that others have had about that employee, and we're going to set some goals as well. So we're going to make it a learning experience and hopefully keep that employee happy. So the team leader position was an idea I came up with to create a better line of communication with the team and managers. So it would be a non-manager position. These people would address day-to-day issues. They'd be a point of contact out there in the field with them. It is a higher rate of pay, so looking at $2 to $4 per hour more than the typical driver position. Performance-based increases, this is saying the better you do, the better your annual increase is going to be. So this is pretty standard in most companies now. I think we should probably switch to that in the near future. It's going to be hard at first. People aren't going to be happy with it, but it's going to be worth it. So we're going to have the employee take an assessment to see how they think they're doing. The manager assesses the employee. They come together, discuss this assessment, and the merit is based on those assessments. So in my personal opinion, the most valuable implementations of today are the tuition reimbursement solution and the team leader position. I think both of these solutions will be really strong in helping us differentiate ourselves as employers and keep our employees happy. So if you have any questions, of course, I'm available at all times to answer any questions you may have. Thank you so much for your time.